Good morning. I'd like to call the February 15th, 2022 City Council meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Garza.
Here.
Fast.
Here.
Bagwell.
Here.
Richardson.
Here.
Here.
Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This morning's prayer will be given by Ken Beery of Trinity United Methodist. Thank you, Ken.
You're invited to pray with me. God of grace, your love is patient, kind, and filled with hope. Today, we meet together to work together for the good of all people and continue to hope. Fill our leaders with wisdom and patience. Help them see the big picture of sustained change that makes our community a better place. Guide today's meeting and inspire us to make a difference, not only here, but in our corner of the world. Of course, in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Next item, please.
Item 4A, Cosmosphere Annual Report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to thank the mayor and the city manager as well as the council for inviting me to speak. Due to the generous support that the community, the citizens, the taxpayers of Hutchinson continue to give to the Cosmosphere, it's important that the Cosmosphere comes before the city to update the community about the state of the organization. And while I would not want to go through what we went through in 20 and in parts of 21, I can tell you that we've emerged from the pandemic a much stronger, much more stable organization. In fact, last year was one of the best years we've had in probably the last 6 or 7 years. When the restrictions on gatherings were lifted, people began coming to the Cosmosphere in record numbers. And so it was fantastic to see people return to the Cosmosphere. Our cash position is very strong. In fact, it's the best it's been maybe in the history of the Cosmosphere, which is outstanding. We also recognize the importance that the Cosmosphere plays on tourism here locally, as well as to the community. And knowing that, we've got to continue to maintain fresh experiences, fresh exhibits, and fresh programming. And so to that end, we've reinvested over $6 million back into the facility over the last 8 or 9 years, which continues to keep the Cosmosphere at the leading edge for the community, but more importantly, to attract tourists to Hutchinson. We continue to engage with the community. We developed our challenge course over the last couple of years, which is available to the community to access. We have partnered with Disability Supports of the Great Plains to create CosmoWorks there on Main Street. We continue to participate in Third Thursdays. We have our own second Saturday at the Cosmosphere, and so we continue to do things that engage and support the community. We also partnered locally with Salt City Brewery to create Space Race. You may have seen that in the media. And this was really just partnering with a great local brewery, a great local business, to come together to create something unique that can help expand the brand of Salt City as well as the Cosmosphere. Again, I can't understate the importance of the tax support. The tax support makes up about 16% of our annual revenue. It allows us to do a lot of the programming that we continue to provide, especially those free programs that we provide. It also helps us improve and enhance our offerings. And as a part of that, we do offer admission, free admission to Reno County, which allows them to get into our new Cosmo Kids, which has proved to be a great family-friendly environment for kids and their parents or grandparents aged 2 to 5. And then it also allows our community to see our improvements at no cost. So we are thrilled to be able to provide those experiences to the community. We continue to look at ways to improve and grow our revenue. As you know, our SpaceWorks division continues to be very busy. We are supporting several touring exhibitions. Our team is supporting an exhibition in Brazil, one that is set to open in Miami this summer, and then an exhibit that is currently in Warsaw, Poland. Will go to Brno, Slovakia later this fall. Spaceworks is also doing other projects. If you are familiar with the B-29 dock, we've worked with them on some new exhibitry last year. The Amelia Earhart Museum up in Hutchinson is contracted with Spaceworks to do preservation of the Lockheed Electra. And most recently, we're working with NIAR down at Wichita State on various projects. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about our most recent endeavor called Launch Next, which is a startup for us. Launch Next, in my opinion, is the wave or the future of the Cosmosphere. When we were hit with the pandemic and people were unable to come to the Cosmosphere, we asked ourselves, how do we take the Cosmosphere to the people? And so we created Launch Next, which is a free virtual offering for people to enjoy the Cosmosphere and its assets, but it's also a fee-based education offering for teachers and school districts. And we have launched that. Right now, we have Launch Next in 38 districts that were supported through Kansas tax credits. We have recently signed contracts with 3 new districts for a 3-year engagement with each of those districts. It's allowed us to add to our staff. We created 5 full-time positions for this. And so, in my opinion, it's a way we can help pandemic-proof the organization, as well as continue to grow revenue outside the traditional means. So I'm very excited about the future of the Cosmosphere. I'm very excited about 2022. Launch Next is something that we're very proud of and will continue to promote and put resources behind. But more importantly, we're very proud of the Cosmosphere here in Hutchinson, Kansas, and are so appreciative of the support that the city provides. With that, I'll entertain any questions.
Are there any questions for Jim? Jim, I might just ask you to talk a little bit about where that tax revenue comes from. That's not out of the general fund, but the quarter-cent sales tax
Correct. That's
voted
part
on
of
by...
the quarter-cent sales tax that is voted on by the taxpayers. The Cosmosphere receives 33% of that quarter-cent. So that is voted on by the taxpayers every 5 years. And it is traditionally passed with overwhelming support. And I, again, can't underscore the importance that revenue has on the Cosmosphere and our ability to provide programming to the community. Very good.
Okay, thank you so
Thank you.
much for all you're doing for our community. Okay, next item, please.
Item 4B, oral communications from the audience.
Okay, this is the part of the meeting where people in the audience can address the council on items that are not on the agenda. Please come to the podium, state your name and zip code, and keep your comments to about 5 minutes. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Susie Bernard. And this morning we're excited because we have received from the state the eligibility for Bernard's Restaurant and Catering to be a historical landmark for Hutchinson, Kansas, and the state of Kansas. We met with Rick Anderson and his architect and crew from Topeka. They came down and took the time and did a site visit and went all through the building. So, as they went through the building, of course, I had to give them the history of Bernard's. When he first walked in, he said, "Where did these brass doors come from?" I said, "Why, of course, my father. He was the owner and designer." Actually, they came, if anyone here can remember Earl Brown Wholesale, or is that before your time? Okay, so the doors came from Earl Brown Wholesale. He walked up, he looked at the ceiling. He said, "Where did the ceiling come from?" Sherman Junior High. When they were tearing down Sherman, they allowed my father to go in. He said, "Sam, get what you need to build this building." He walked over, he looked at the booths. He said, where did the booths come from? He's not from here. Anyone in here remember the Big Dipper in Dillon's up on 30th? Those booths are in the restaurant. So as I took them all the way through to look at everything and explain where it came from, now they're being nice. They're saying, well, it's reprocessed or repurposed. But when my parents got through at a job, if there was any wood, brass, stone, anything that was left, they could use to build Bernards. They did it. And then, like when they poured concrete, they would tell Lee Rainey, well, can I do this job for you? And then we traded out on the restaurant. Why, sure. Same way with the electrician. So everything in that building has a story for historical, for Kansas, Hutchinson, the state. That's why I applied for the historical landmark. Now, when you go all the way out in western Kansas, does anyone remember Tolette's Country Inn? We had a second restaurant in little tiny Maxville, Kansas, on the highway. Absolutely. So when truckers and travelers from California, if you ate breakfast with my mom, you ate lunch with me. So there's history there. So Rick Anderson and them came down, walked all through the building, looked at the roof, the ceilings, the walls, the floors, touched things. He asked me, he said, how did those windows get in front? Of course, my father, Bernard Brothers, put it in. They poured the concrete. They did a lot. So did you all receive the letter that I emailed everybody about Bernard?
Yes.
Okay then. All right, so I'm going to turn it over. Any questions? Because I'm going to turn it over to John Irving next.
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is quite an endeavor to take on. It's amazing that to date we have very little history about black businesses in Reno County, if any. I hope this will not be the only effort that's made to preserve what black people have been here and have done a few things. And this is just the beginning. I hope that there will be many more. Black businesses are dying in Hutchinson. I think it's very difficult. I've been watching the Olympics and they keep having these commercials about dreaming and those people that were before, that have done things before, and the children are looking at them, and as they look and they dream and they think about what they might do, and their dreams get bigger when they see things and they see people who look like them. It's amazing what that can do to you. We want to be one of the first to make this effort so that at some point in time there will be some young black people and some old black people that may want to entertain the entrepreneurship steps to dream about owning their own business and those kind of things. And to do that, you need something that you can see and feel. And it's amazing when you can see somebody that looks like you and have some success. And I go back to, this is quite an endeavor. And we decided that we had to have some help. The Honorable Mayor suggested that we ask for help. And she also stated that if we ask, that you would deliver. So we're going to ask. And today we're going to ask. But to move forward, we have recruited some players for this team. And we have partnered, or I should say, Hutchinson Harmony has partnered with us. They have also, they will speak next, and they have also identified the Bernard restaurant facility as one of the businesses, or I want to say, I'll let her talk more about it, but they have also, Hutchinson Harmony has also identified some structures in the city of which they want to support and work with to make an effort to show and build some history, something that people can dream about, something that some black people can see, somebody that looks like them, and see that they have taken that entrepreneurship step and had been successful. And Hutchinson Harmony, what they do, they will, I believe you're familiar with them, but if not, Rebecca.
I wanted to say two more things to them. Did anyone ever visit Bernard's gift shop? We had a gift shop in the restaurant. Absolutely. And then when you went to Dillon's years ago and you looked on the wall and there was dried floral wreaths, it was Bernard's Rosidia Floral Company. We never tagged them. When you bought a wreath, 9 out of 10 chances, it could have been from Bernard's. What does Rosidia stand for? The best of Kansas from the roads and the cities. So what did we do? We went out, studied, and harvested all type of dried flowers around from the state of Kansas, dried fresh flowers with them, made wreaths, and delivered them all through the Dillon stores. So we have the prospect with the history of redoing the restaurant historically. So when you're a traveler and you come through, you can buy from our gift shop as well as Rosidia. So Hutchinson is a part of Rosidia. All right, E. Harvey.
I just had a
Yep.
couple questions. And you know me, I'm just asking questions, so don't, I'm not just, so how did, are there any, and it's just because I'm curious, are there any extenuating circumstances that I might not be aware of that caused Bernard's to get in the state that it's in?
Yes.
I would like to know about this trip, like, how
It's
did it go?
painful, but I will tell you.
Because I
Yeah,
think people would,
80% of my staff died from cancer or whatever. My sister died in 2014 of breast cancer also. My son hit a train and lived through it. Went up underneath the train, came out through a window about this big, plowed his way through, all cut up, rolled over what she thought was in the ground, and he was in a pond. The farmers, when he got up, there was a beacon from a farm, a light, and the farmers heard him drive up underneath the train. So then we lost revenue. I mean, I was depressed, and one day it said, "Hey, Susie, wake up. Your parents built this building. They fought for you. They made a name with food, good food, throughout the state of Kansas." That's what and so with losing all of that, and then because my sister and I ran the business after my mother died, and then she died, and it left me all by myself. That's how this got to this, unfortunately. And I own it. So all I can do is do my best. So that's why I've asked for help. With eHarmony, they offer accounting, resources, and our mayor asked me, "Do you have help, Susie?" And I said, "Well, I can get to digging." So I want, when you drive by on that highway, to be proud that that's a part of Hutchinson. And not only that, that my doors will be open. Now, they may not be open every day, but for tourists and people that come by, and I'm also petitioning that 2100 South Bone Break have a different name. I want it Bernard Avenue or Bernard Street or Bernard Place. It's not about Susie. It's about my mother and father and the Bernard family.
Just to piggyback on what you said, to be specific, it's amazing. First, the owner died, Colette Bernard. Then a waitress died shortly thereafter. Then the head chef died shortly thereafter. Then the second chef died shortly thereafter. Then the dishwasher died. This is a true story. This is a true story. Boom, 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 boom. And in brief, when you lose not only your administrators and the owner, but when you lose your key staff, you're in real trouble. And she ended up running it by herself. And she did not have all of those kinds of things, the business acumen, to run the business. And so, to answer your question, there it is. And it's on a rebound. It's on a rebound. And it was difficult for her to ask for help. I'm not sure she asked. Seriously. And she was lacking in some areas. And we're putting those pieces together of which her weaknesses, we're bringing strength to it. We're building a team for her. It's here. We're building a team for her. And we've made progress, and we're moving with Godspeed to try to put it together so that the city will accept our efforts. We've already identified a contractor. Hopefully they'll be here this week to give us some estimates and take a look at the structure and let us know what they feel the cost will be to put it back together. And we will put it back together. And these kinds of things take time. For instance, the effort for the, what's the technical name for the
For preservation.
Yes. That effort takes anywhere from 3 to 18 months before they have finished what they say is needed to
Out of Topeka.
Yeah, from Topeka, and so that's going to take time as well. I'll let Rebecca talk.
Before you go, one more. But Rick Anderson and his group out of Topeka revisited the inspection 2 times before they made a decision. So they gave it a lot of thought and serious scrutiny. And then I received the letter, because if you notice on the letter, it said, "Thank you for your patience," and they revisited it.
So they're of the opinion that the structure could be
Yes,
successfully renovated.
yes. Otherwise, they wouldn't issue and for them to drive down from Topeka, that says something. So am I happy? Yes.
Rebecca from Hutchinson Harmony. Our office is at 23 East 1st, Suite 8. I just want to affirm what John Irving said. We had already identified Susie's building as something that we wanted to preserve on kind of our project list this year. And then, was it John that came to us? Or someone came to us and said, hey, Susie's under maybe a quicker timeline than you might be aware of, so we're happy to be here. I just want to read a quick letter from Hutchinson Harmony's perspective. Greetings to our mayor and council members. It is the honor of Hutchinson Harmony, along with the Hutchinson NAACP, to join Ms. Susie Bernard today in providing a progress report on efforts to preserve the cultural hub for Black history in Hutchinson that is Bernard's Restaurant, located at 2100 South Bone Break. We echo Ms. Bernard's previous assertions on behalf of the cultural value of the building. Not only does it contain the memories and accomplishments of the many noteworthy members of the Bernard family, which would make it a relic worth preservation in its own right, It contains architectural relics repurposed from numerous buildings of note in Hutchinson, and I'll skip that because Susie already spoke to that. Despite its need for repairs, it remains a time capsule of Hutchinson's glory days when B.B. King and a long list of celebrities played in clubs in Hutchinson and ate soul food at Bernard's. Its loss would strike a devastating blow to the accomplishments and memories of Black Hutchinson folks, as such are too often lost due to lack of recognition of their value by the community at large. Ms. Bernard expressed to us her chagrin that she needs help in the process of restoring and preserving this touchstone of Black history in Hutchinson. We assured her of the fact that very little, much less a project of this size, can be undertaken by any one person. We assure the Council of our intent to provide Ms. Bernard assistance in moving this project forward. Inside this packet, please find a letter from the Kansas Historical Society affirming the eligibility of the building for listing in the Historic Register. Because of this, Ms. Bernard wishes to hold off on any modifications to the building pending oversight by the Register to ensure modifications do not render it ineligible. With this in mind, we join Ms. Bernard in requesting that the building be removed from the demo list as we assist her in the completion of the nomination process and in the application for state and federal grants and tax credits for building rehabilitation. In the future, we commit to providing the Council regular updates regarding our progress and timeline for completion of the building restoration. Today, our objective is to demonstrate that Ms. Bernard has the support of her community and has made progress by having Bernard's Restaurant inspected and declared eligible for preservation by the Kansas Historic Registry. We extend our special thanks to the City Planner's Office for their kind assistance in our efforts thus far.
Thank you.
Okay, how do we do this? Mr. Easy, I'm pronouncing your name wrong, I'm sorry. You come up to the, please, sir. So what's our, how do we do this to get it off the list of demolition, or what?
Izzy Rivera, Director of Building and Neighborhood Services and Building Official. As far as removing a building from the demolition list, of course, we need something in our office to show that something will be done. I've been asking for, as you know, from the very beginning that I started here, plans, documentation, permit applications, something to show that this will be taken care of in a safe and timely manner, which I haven't received as of yet. Actually, this is the first that I'm hearing anything about this. I didn't know about the letter coming in from the state, from the Historical Commission. I made contact with them, and they told me that they did receive the application, but that a lot of things had to be done in order for that process to go through. And of course, I'm assuming they're just starting to do that now. Of course, my concern is the safety of the public. As you know, in December 15, we've had that high wind storm event here. One building was blown away. Fortunately, it was stopped by trees and it didn't cause any additional damages to other buildings in the surrounding area. This building is adjacent to a highway. I was very concerned that evening that part of it would end up on the highway and cause possible issues there with passerbyers in their vehicles. But I need some sort of plan. The building has to be secured and shored up in a manner that it will not deteriorate any further, but that would need to come from an engineer or an architect. I'm not saying that it cannot be done. I've always said it can be done. It's just that it needs quite a bit of things to be done to it, but I haven't seen anything as of this point, which is why I still recommending that it still be on the demolition list until such actions have been taken from the applicant.
How long has this been going on? When did this all start?
It's been going on for about 1.5 years, almost 2. It's in our report. When I started here in December, it would have been my 5th time coming up in March, which is scheduled for the next meeting. And each and every time, it's been brought to the council that it would be taken care of, and it has not. I appreciate the fact that they're trying to salvage the building being a minority member myself, as Hispanic, and the struggles that I came through, from the New York City housing projects to where I am today, that took a lot. So I understand the struggles that they go through as well. But I still have to think about the safety of the citizens of Hutchinson and those that come by it.
And Izzy, the other buildings that you were talking about in the windstorm, was that on the Bernard property?
No, sir, that was, fortunately for us, the winds didn't hit that part of town. It was more on the west side of town, which was a saving grace. But once again, it can happen.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything we can do as a city to maybe help them get people rallied behind them so that maybe we could get a community project where we have some of the community contractors go out there? Maybe we waive some permitting fees. We ask the community for help. We get it in the newspaper. We just get a bunch of people out there, maybe in some of these small businesses too around town, and we.
I would accept
We
that
get-
all day long. I
Like,
just
is
haven't
there any
received
way
anything.
as a city we could help rally something up? I know that when my mother's house burned down, Interfaith Housing came in and helped build a new house, and a lot of it was donated from from construction companies, and like the whole town kind of rallied in, and several businesses around town helped rebuild the house after the house fire, right? So is there anything we can do as a community to say, hey, why don't we waive some permitting fees? Why don't we get this out in the newspaper? Maybe we can ask, like, I guess I'm just saying it right now. I'm asking the community if there's any contractors, roofing companies, any local businesses willing to come up here, call the city, call Izzy, let's get you connected with the Bernards, and let's get in there and let's get some windows boarded up, let's get some of the roof taped off, and at this point, why don't we come together as a city? So I'm gonna call everybody out there who's watching this, get a hold of Izzy, get a hold of the Bernards, and let's just try to rally to get something done, because I think it'd be in the benefit of the safety of what needs to be done and a community involvement project. And I think maybe we can waive some permitting fees at the city level, and you can get some PR for your business for in the newspaper, articles of contributing to this community project.
And Izzy, what exactly needs to be done to shore up this building so that it's safe, so that we, in the background, by we, I meaning the city and the partners that are involved in this, can move forward at their own pace? We can get this off of our radar. What needs to be done? An engineered print of how to shore this, is it the south side up or the north side? Anyway, it just seems like this is taking forever to at least make the building safe, and that's frustrating to me.
That's pretty much what I've been asking from day one.
Right.
Is a set of engineered plans showing how this is going to be done. How are we going to make it safe while it's still being constructed? Because I still don't want any of even the construction workers while they're working there for anything to fall on them while they're working.
Right.
So certain things have to be shored up and protected so that way as they're working, no one gets injured.
Mhm.
But that an architect or an engineer can draw that up, submit that to us, and once an application is in our system, that stops the demolition process. Now we have a building permit. That's what we did with the residential. Ms. Bernard was kind enough to submit an application. Actually expired the other day, but she, I asked her to please give me a letter stating that she would like to renew that permit. And the reason why she had let it lapse, she did that for me, and I was more than happy to extend it for another 180 days. A permit is what stops any action on any building. However, I haven't received anything to date, no communications, no meetings, no nothing, so
And
I have no choice but to keep reporting the same thing over to you.
I understand, and from my point of view, there's two separate issues here. The older I get, the more I love history, and I am completely on board with trying to somehow preserve some of this history and acknowledge it. But the other issue, it needs to be taken care of, and I don't know how much longer.
Yeah, I may offer just a few thoughts.
Okay.
First, I want to thank you, Izzy, because I know that your mandate is to provide safety. But I would offer that the council's mandate is a little different, a little broader, and it also includes a mandate to respect cultural and historical things of significance in our community. So I really appreciate your patience, because you're right. We've been dealing with this for a long time. The difference I see now is that Susie has finally admitted she needs help and has obtained help from a coalition of people who have the different skill sets necessary to carry through a project of this magnitude. It's not like we thought you didn't have the heart or the ability on your own, Susie, but it's an impossible project on your own. For me, I feel like that's the reason you haven't gotten what you've needed. Because, I mean, what Susie hasn't shared, we've had many phone calls, is that her husband's in poor health. He's in and out of the hospital all the time, and her priority needs to be on him, no matter how much she loves the building and the history that comes along with it. So I would ask for a little more grace, and I know I do this every time you're up there, Izzy. But now that we have that coalition of support and a call for the community to maybe help, I would ask that we consider either taking it off the demo list or extending the time period for obtaining a stamped architectural plan or engineering design, so that this coalition can get to work on preserving it. And I think it's very fitting that this is all happening in February, which is Black History Month, and if you've grown up here, there's nothing more representative of Black history than Bernard's. So that's what I would like the council to consider, and ask for your input, Izzy, on what that might look like. Extending the deadline for the design that you need, or taking it off the demo list completely. Could you give me some feedback?
Well, as I already mentioned, I still wouldn't like to take it off of the demo list until I get something from an engineer and architect stating what the plan of action is. That'll also show to me that they are finally getting together.
Okay.
And it's going to happen. But until then, once again, my job is still to protect the city. And you're totally right. I appreciate what they're finally doing. They're finally getting together, which is a great thing. I wish this would have started a lot sooner.
Yeah.
Because I just drove by the building the other day and the roof collapsed even more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm, really concerned about the condition of the building, but I'll be more than happy, as I've always said, to work with them if they work with me. I need constant updates. I have not received that. But like I said, the plans will stop the demo. After the plan and the permit will stop the demo.
Okay, Susie, I'd like to hear from you or your representative, whether that's Becca or John. What do you think is a doable timeline for presenting those plans, and who will be helping you? Do you have the resources needed to get that?
Yes, I will work with John, and we had already contacted someone out of Wichita. But the other thing is, if we get to what he's asking, we still have to work with the state guidelines.
Yes, and that's going to be difficult to find contractors.
Yeah,
who
but
are able to do that.
we are going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, I've been working with this project since July. There's no question she needed some leadership, and she needed some folks who had specific skills to take a look at engineers and architects and those kinds of things. I thought that two things.
John, do you mind standing
Mr. Fast,
closer
you
to
made
the
me-
microphone?
You
I'm
made me
sorry.
feel real good, Mr. Fast. Two things. Number one is when I came, Susie was fighting the terminal illness of her business. They're getting ready to bury it, and she was fighting, trying to stay out of our grave. And those were her efforts, trying to stay out of the grave, trying to do those kinds of things with very few resources and very few skill sets other than her own restaurant. So, since July, Susie never wanted to demolish. Ever.
No.
So I don't know how much time it takes for us to understand that she knew she didn't want to demolish
It
that
was
business.
not in my heart
Yeah,
to do that.
But with all due respect to the city and the inspections department, they were trying to do their job. I think that it would take one hell of a storm to tear that building down and hurt somebody. The traffic flow, the kinds of folks that walk through that place, I think you could count them on 2 fingers or one hand. I don't know, I mean, how many residents are in that area?
But after the windstorm, we had no damage, a little bit.
Yeah.
But John-
It's possible, he's right, there's a possibility, but there aren't that many folks. And since July, so I think that with our team, we've had 2 meetings, and I think they'll tell you what the number 1 item on the agenda will be when we finally meet and all of us are there. And it will be real soon. And they all know that the number 1 item on the agenda is the plan of action. And we couldn't find a contractor, and there's not many black anything in Hutchinson or Reno County. But we found, it doesn't have to be a black contractor. Fortunately, we were able to find a contractor in Wichita, and a very good one, Diz Construction Company. And he's already told me that he will partner with Law Company. I think we're talking about some folks that your age that you might be familiar with. The Law Company is one of the finest construction companies in the country, and they are going to provide us with an engineer and an architect to come here and take a look at it. The number one item on our agenda as a team is the action plan. And so that will be coming, that's forthcoming, and I think that'll be relatively soon, because we have the expertise now. The timeline, I think that I stated earlier that our timeline is the state's timeline.
Yeah.
And we're going to work with that timeline. I think that shoring up the building, when the law company sends their representatives to Hutchinson, they received the information yesterday. Did you email? They received the information yesterday. So I know they'll be here real soon.
Okay, John, that sounds great. I have full faith that you're going to develop a plan within this team. The element I see missing is we need that liaison with the city. We need a representative to be giving reports like, which Becca said she or somebody would do, Hutch and Harmony would do. But I think Izzy would feel a lot more comfortable if he knew those were going to be coming, I don't know, every month, every few weeks. I believe this item, the demo item, is on the agenda for either the first meeting in March or the second. And so I'm guessing it would be best to have a plan prior to appearing before the city when that item is on the agenda.
We can commit to meeting with the city as often as necessary and giving reports monthly, bi-monthly, whatever makes the city feel comfortable that progress is being made. I do feel for Susie. I'm a person that kind of pride myself and often try too hard and too long to do it alone until I finally realize it's out of my control. So that's kind of the moment we're in and the moment we came into. And so we're still, we're organizers, so we're still putting things
And
together.
once again, with the
But-
state,
Yes,
we have to go on their time and their guidelines. So,
but
Is-
making contact with the contractor, as soon as I have that paperwork, I can forward it to the city council members. I can do a report at the next meeting, whatever you need from me.
Yeah, I think the major concern and the reason why I'm thinking we need to maybe do something to see if there's any contractors or roofers. I think we need to get the roof and some of the stuff just shored up as soon as possible so that you aren't going to deteriorate the building anymore.
That's our
and
first
lose
priority.
that
is making it secure.
historical, so there's some stuff that needs to be done immediately just to preserve what you have currently in that building. And so I think that needs to be the number one focus, is getting that roof.
You know,
The getting some boards up there, particle board, and some of
you're
that
absolutely 100% right.
that paper, you put under the
You're
shingles,
100% correct.
stapled are up
100%
there,
correct.
yeah.
But one thing you need to understand, those dollars that were set aside, from the day I came here, I had the money for the demolition in my pocket, because I thought that's what she needed, okay? And it ain't in my pocket today, but I have the money for her, for the demolition, because I thought that's what she had to do.
Yeah.
She never wanted to do that.
Yeah, well, what I'm
But
saying is the roof.
I'm not, let me finish.
Yeah.
Now, not now, with the support, and I got a good feeling about today and the council and what you're saying, and that gives me a good feeling. Those dollars can be put toward the roof,
Yeah,
as opposed to demolition.
I think the
You
roof
understand
right
what
now
I'm
is your
saying?
number one priority, because
Yeah.
when roofs go, water gets in, more stuff deteriorates. I think when you guys go back to discuss, it's like, get the roof, like, it doesn't have to be, you need to get it where it's not having water coming in, it's not further
Deteriorating the building.
deteriorating.
And I
Whether you get
apologize that
some-
we don't have those communications with you
Yeah,
to give to you today. We are very new to the project. Came to us over the weekend, so this is what I was doing at midnight last night. But I hope that our work in the community
Yeah.
speaks for itself, and our sense of
Yeah.
understanding of urgency and
I hope-
getting what the city
yeah.
needs.
I hope the paper picks it up today. If you want to share something online, I'm more than willing to share it on Facebook as well, to people that I know. And maybe we can get it shared on Facebook, shared on the groups. Newspaper can get it picked up.
Publicity
And
would be awesome.
maybe the more people we can get the story out to, maybe somebody will be willing, or several people in the community will be willing
And
to
I've
help
already
get.
received phone calls.
That would be
People
great.
wanting to
That would be great. That would be great. But
Because I think if we could just get people to come out to help preserve what it is right now,
that
right?
would be great. But
I think that would be the,
that would be
that way
great.
once you have it preserved, you can work through the process with the state. And they're not gonna have that worry either of, so if you get it preserved without touching any of the stuff that's historical, right? So just getting the roof and maybe some leaking spots stopped, that's also gonna help you through your process with
No
the state.
question about it.
Yeah,
However, we can't bet on the community helping us. I have to tell you the truth, that the council has allowed us to go this far, this long. So I have to say that that's a blessing. But the feel of the city and the feel of the leaders of the city have been tough. It's been them against us, and that's tough. And it's just been tough. And the feeling has been that the effort is to get rid of that building until today. And I know this feeling is real, that you're allowing us to look forward into the future of trying to preserve the building. First time I've got that feeling, whatever that means. And that's the support we need. I mean, to fight and to keep coming to talk about demolition, and when the efforts have always been, in her world, in her mind, to preserve it, period. With or without the historical, that was her efforts. She didn't have the resources, but you need to understand that when you're talking about putting the building in a grave, and you're fighting to keep that grave from being dug a little deeper, and every month we're hearing that you're digging that grave. That's a real tough thing. But it helped getting her, setting the fire under her so that we got this far. But now I think we have the leadership. I think we have it. And I think that in due time, and I pray that Mr. Diggs will be here soon. He got the information yesterday. And then we can do the kinds of things that the normal process for development, per se, if you will. The normal process for development. We can do that now. We can do that now because we have the help. We have the help.
Back to your question, Jay, did that answer your question? What I was saying is Hutchinson Harmony is more than willing to meet with Izzy as long as, often as he needs, so he can see our plans, be part of our meetings, whatever is helpful moving forward, we'd like to avail ourselves
So
to.
John and I will execute whatever we need from the state to them, and we will get with Izzy.
Okay.
I have a question. Is this a slab on grade floor, concrete floor?
It's concrete.
Okay. If they were to pull a permit to put temporary fencing around the building to secure it, to keep people from going in and out that aren't allowed there, and to keep if there's a storm, to help keep stuff from flying off into the highway or something like that, and put temporary supports in to support the roof until such time they get approval from the state, if they were to pull that permit, would it take it off the list for now?
That would all be delineated in the plans from the architect or engineer.
Okay.
And like I said, once I get that, I'll be more than happy to take it up. I'm not in the business to knock down buildings. I love buildings. I come from a city that's nothing but buildings. So you mentioned there are other buildings in the city that need attention. I don't like I said, I don't like knocking down buildings. I like to salvage them, find ways of putting them back on our tax rolls, more beneficial that way. I like to see the community grow. It can't grow if we knock down buildings. But of course, I still have to think of safety. But yes, all I need is a set of plans from an architect showing how that's going to be temporarily secured until, and I understand that the process with the state will take a lot of time. And that's all well and good. I don't have a problem with that, because the building at that point will not be deteriorating any further, or at least not collapsing on itself, and that'll be fine. And then they could take their time at that point to whatever. I'm more than willing to work with them, but they need to communicate with me.
Great. Thank you, Izzy. Well, this isn't a formal item on our agenda today, but it will be in March. So I think what you're hearing from the council is that we're rooting for you, and we're not interested in only looking at one method of dealing with this, which is demo of that south side. So I think that's what we're hearing today.
Thank you.
But no, thank you for all the background and for getting help and for your willingness to take on this project for the betterment of our community.
And I didn't want to just show up in March and go, guess what? Because it's serious. We want to get this done. And I need help. And that's why we interrupted today. And I'm really sorry to everyone for holding you up.
Well, that's fine. That's what we're here for. But this item will be on the agenda, so we will need to be addressing this. It's still on that list that's going to come before us in March. So I hope that we have somebody here to hopefully have a plan so that maybe we can get it off the list or at least extend it. So
When you say plan, are you talking about our action plan, or are you saying to us to have an engineer prepare or architect prepare?
well, I think I can't speak for the council, but I think what we're looking for is forward movement. So a plan of action, evidence that communication is occurring between the city and the planners. I think all of that'll be good. So.
Can you imagine, this is now we can put together a plan, because this is the plan that she wanted all along. Can you imagine spending money with an architect and an engineer prior to today for demolition?
Yeah, that would be tough.
Huh?
That would be tough.
Can you imagine that? Waste of money. This is what we need. This is what we need, your support. Second time anybody has ever offered support. Second time. And God bless you. Because that's what we need. And that's what anybody, any resident in this city needs. Is to hear that you're supporting us, not just Bernard, but this is the second time. You spoke briefly about we want to help you. And we immediately got a meeting with the city manager. Immediately. You get off of myself, but that's okay. That's okay. Today, we can move forward, and we do have it. This is the plan we want to have. This is what we want. And this will not be wasted money like it would have been prior to today. Total waste of money.
Hey, John, I wonder if Interfaith Housing would have somebody on staff that could provide some prints for you to make this safe. What do you know much about that, Sarah? I know they're more.
I know they
in
deal with the
residential.
residential than commercial.
Yeah,
They're
that's-
residential.
that's the
Maybe
problem.
they could offer some guidance on how they do it. Just-
Ironically, we have someone in the front row who happens to be from Interfaith. Way to put him on the spot,
Well,
great.
I
Well-
had no idea. I don't know you. I'm so
I
sorry.
would say maybe they could.
And I've got some notes, and we actually spoke
Okay.
to the Bernard family years ago on the project. Esmeralda is on our board of directors, so we'll get together and
Okay.
see how we can be part of the solution. Absolutely.
I can call them, yes.
And
Love it.
thank you, Esmeralda and Natasha, for being here. Appreciate it.
Okay, Susie, I want to speak out. These ladies and gentlemen and Harmonies, I've been involved with them for about 6 months too, going through all their meetings. They have not been sitting around. They've been meeting once a month. I've been going to the meetings, and they have been doing actions. They got a hold of the state. She's been moving. She's been doing what she's supposed to do, and I appreciate her efforts, and Susie doesn't want this to go. So, Susie, I applaud your efforts, and I go to your meetings for reasons, because you are in my district. Not for that, I don't care if you was on the north side, I'd be there. They have done their job. They have done what they're supposed to do. Now you gave them action. I have no doubt in my mind they'll come through with the action. I've sat in their meetings. I watched their meetings. I listened to them, and they have done a great job. Now they need some help for saying what to do. They got it, and I think they'll go on and fix that building and go on. And I will still keep an eye on it. I talk to Susie quite a bit, call her on the phone, so how's things today? What's going on, so I know what's going on. Because I can't know what's going on in my district unless I talk to my citizens. So I have no doubt in my mind that you'll make this work, Susie. And I'm behind you 100%, and I applaud your efforts. You got with the state. I was there when the state was talking to her. I was right there sitting to the phone when the state was talking to her, saying she's proud, they're proud of her for going on and doing what she's doing and standing up for what she thinks is right. And I, as a city commissioner, are proud of you too.
Thank you.
For what you're doing. And Harmony, I'm proud for you stepping up and helping. That's what we need in this community. So I have no doubt in my mind that you're going to come through this. I just want to make sure these people haven't been sitting here. They've been having meetings once a month. They've been going talking to the state. They have been all over the place trying to get help. So we should help you. We'll do what we
Please.
can, what we can,
Thank
as
you.
long as my
All of
district. So I applaud your efforts. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you, Hermione. Thank you for your efforts and stepping in and helping them. I think you got the right crew now. I think you're going to make it. If you need anything else, let me know,
All right.
please.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you all for coming today.
Thank you.
Yep. Are there others in the audience who would like to address the council? Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. My name's Phoebe Davenport, and me and my partner Mark are owners of Lavera Properties. We started investing in Hutchinson real estate in the downtown a couple of years ago. We bought a few buildings in the downtown area, and the ones that I wanted to talk to you about today are Plaza Towers in Leon Place, over on East 2nd. Those properties, like I said, we purchased in 2020. We've invested so far a couple of $1 million into purchasing and renovating the building. We have done a lot of renovations. We've renovated approximately 55 of the almost 100 apartments that are in those two buildings. We have renovated about 10 commercial spaces and placed businesses in those spaces that were vacant for decades before. We have created a bunch of jobs, somewhere in the ballpark of 20, between people that are renovating, managing the properties, and then new businesses that have gone into some of the spaces that we've created too. So, yeah, we're here to make a request to the city.
One of the properties I affectionately call Old Man Leon. It's Leon Place. It's opposite Plaza Towers. 6-story, bunch of apartments and some commercial spaces on the first floor. We have a situation with the elevator where it hasn't been updated for maybe 30 years. The prior owner did some work on it about 30 years ago. We've been doing band-aid fixes with, like $1,000 here, $2,000 there to keep the elevator up and running. At the moment, the elevator isn't really running because we're coming up with some bigger issues to keep the building serviced. And there's 6 floors, so the tenants on the upper floors are having some difficulties at the moment, which is not really what we want to see. But from the position of our company, we are really committed to these buildings, these tenants, and actually our commitment to them extends beyond them because we're renovating the Hoke Hotel and have designs on additional buildings in the city as well. But we do, with all our development work that we're doing at the moment, we are looking for help to get that elevator at Leon Place up and running again. Just wanted to put it in front of you. It's we think probably to the tune of about $100,000 would be the modernization, and we're in the process of working with a couple of companies to spec out what would be involved to do the work. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. Happy to kind of answer any questions you might have about what we have in mind.
Okay. Questions from the council?
What is it, a motor problem, or is it the shaft problem on the elevator, or what is exactly what it is?
The number one problem is the controller.
Okay.
So it's very, very old elevator. Yeah, we were speaking with the guy from the elevator company just the other day, and they're trying to give us these Band-Aid fixes to hobble along, basically, but some of the bigger components really do need to be upgraded in order for it to not keep on breaking down. Right now, it breaks down after about 15 minutes, so we have a tech come out, he gets it running again, and within 15 or 20 minutes, it's back down again, and the tenants are stuck in it. We have the fire department come out sometimes to let people out, although we're learning how to get them out ourselves, too. With our own staff. But yeah, the controller, the motor possibly, but the controller is the bigger ticket item of the two.
My question is, how does the city help in a situation with a privately owned real estate?
Well, we do have an economic opportunity fund within the budget that we could, I guess, choose to allocate. I think it might be something in the greater budget discussions. Jeff, you might be, you would definitely be better able to speak to this.
Yeah, I'd sure be better prepared to speak to it in a future meeting. I didn't know what the ask was going to be, but I agree. We do have a fund that has been used for private interest before. It would not be out of the ordinary for the city to merge efforts with private to advance a project.
For instance, the former owner of Plaza Towers, I believe we invested $200,000 to shore up that property. I can't remember. Paul, you might remember what that was for. That was many moons.
Sprinklers and elevators.
Sprinkler system. I think it was and then, of course, we've partnered with the Manskys on multiple development projects downtown, infrastructure improvements, curb and guttering around the link, and, of course, the elevator, or the parking lot at the Wiley, which is a little bit more extensive, about $2.5 million.
I hate to have this. I mean, I'm just going to say it because I think everybody's probably thinking it. So how come we can't help the Bernards in any way?
Yeah, we can. We can do. So we have an economic opportunity fund, and typically the parameters around use of that is job creation, and just whatever kind of economic development. So if we chose to see that the Bernards property could be a driver of, say, tourism or job creation, we could absolutely use that. Or, we could use that fund for incentives for, cash incentives
What do
for
we
job
have in that
creation.
fund currently if we were to look at both projects?
That's an Angela question. It didn't, we only recently broke that fund out from the general fund. That would have been in the last probably 4 or 5 years. But that's the fund that we used to give a $1 million cash incentive to Siemens back in 2009, 2010, before I was on council.
I think this could be a discussion during our work session.
Yeah, for sure. We do have a work session this evening, but I'm not sure if we have.
I had one question. Are you looking for like a match?
We're looking for support. That can be, we would consider a grant, a match, an interest-free loan. Our business is getting those properties to do what they need to do, and the broader implications from which I think everyone here would probably understand. So we're always looking at solutions. If there was a solution that would work for the council, then we'll look at it as a company and see whether we have a win-win.
Okay.
Yeah, as a company, we were hoping, we knew that the elevator was old, but we were hoping that we would have more time before it came to this point. So we hadn't factored in replacing or, modernizing the elevator at this point in our business plan. Because right now, the building is really not performing at all. It's a sinkhole of resource. So we were hoping that we could get the building stabilized in terms of tenants placed into apartments that have been renovated and things like that. And then once the building is stabilized, then we could bite off some of these bigger ticket items. That was our initial plan coming in.
How many residents do you have there?
Right now?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we have about 15 vacant apartments out of 33. We have about 8 or 10 of those apartments that we've done the majority of the renovation. We're just getting ready to bring them to market.
Do you think having a modernized elevator would help with retention of some of those buildings or help getting them filled?
Absolutely. Right now, we can't even show an apartment on the 5th or 6th floor without, if you take someone huffing and puffing up 6 flights of stairs, there's no way they're going to rent and think about bringing their groceries up the stairs. No, maybe 3rd floor. 2nd and 3rd floor might be okay, but 4th, 5th, and 6th are pretty much
Well, that's
non-functional.
where I was coming from, was the housing angle on this area.
Yeah, that's one.
We're
Guys, I hate to
Do you
always
have
be
a
the wet
number?
blanket. It seems like I'm becoming more popular for that. But this may be an area of innovation that you don't want to be known as in the Midwest of doling out, maybe $100,000 or $250,000 from the podium.
For
and
sure.
I fear that we're kind of getting into that territory based on discussions. So what I would suggest is if there is a desire for this to be researched, and I think it would be meaningful work for us to do together, give us at least a couple of weeks to put a review together, review our policies so that you're not found in a situation of, gosh, you approved the Davenport scenario, but now we've got maybe a plethora of other situations that might be more deserving than theirs. Wouldn't be hard to find. And then what do you do? So
Really good point.
let us have a couple weeks to look at that. We've
Could
got
you
a
look
great
at-
working relationship with the Davenports. Excellent.
Yeah.
Love the work they're doing. I feel confident staff could return a recommendation or at least a feasibility pro forma that would probably make sense for review.
Could you look at both projects that were discussed at the podium today?
Which other project?
Bernard's.
Not unless formally directed. And I can explain why. It would be a lengthy explanation, but there's a pretty good cause for that. Not the appetite to do it, but it'd be highly conflictive.
Highly conflicted on the 2 different projects, 2 different, is that what you mean?
I think to give a proper briefing to the council as to what staff knows, about the project and the communications going on at the state level. First, I think we'd have to have a truthful conversation as to what that really is. I don't want to break into a spiritual moment. It seems like there's a lot of emotion tied to that property. When I'm looking at this, I'm looking at the context of none of that's relevant, yet it is. I understand that that feels relevant. And in my review of it, I'm thinking, how many people does this really put in jeopardy on any given day? Well, more than one is too many. But the reality is, it's not quite as bad as the landmark was. And we're not dealing with some of those same risk patterns. So I look at that a little bit different.
I guess this is what I'm just gonna throw it out there, because I think there's some people maybe thinking the same thing I am. You know, we've put money into shoring up the atrium when it's in private. It's still in for the
we
private,
don't own that
right?
building.
We've put money into shoring up the landmark, and it's still in private. We're the ones that have gone in and boarded that building up for public safety. We've gone in, and I think we've already set a precedent for helping. But then on the other hand, you know, they're great investors, and we want to keep the momentum and investing in our town. But I just don't understand. I understand that, you know, the Bernard's house is, but are you saying that if we could help, wanted to increase safety to the community, plus possibly create maybe 2 or 3 jobs, and be a destination if they market it the way that they're marketing it today? I would argue that we've spent money on time shoring up other buildings for safety, as I just named 2. I think it could possibly be, like I said, destination driver, maybe 2 or 3 jobs, and we've done it before.
I don't know that I've heard the proposal includes reopening of a restaurant, maybe, or a museum, maybe a Star-Bond. I'm not sure where you're getting that, because I haven't received that. And I do understand there's a separate information channel to the council than there is to staff. So that's often why we ask for additional time to review that, because we don't have the same information you have. But my recommendation, the reason I wouldn't want to get lofty spirits elevated, is that if we did perform a review of that property, I can tell you sitting here what my recommendation is, and that recommendation is demolition. So it would really be an exercise of futility, but I would complete it if directed formally by the governing body. But that's what the outcome would be.
I think what city manager is saying is that, you know, the governing body has within its purview to spend money in a fund for projects it deems worthy.
Mm-hmm.
But he would like time to put together some parameters to make sure that those decisions are as fair and equitable as possible, and have certain, you know, minimum benchmarks that they meet. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely, Mayor. Yeah, and I've been to the property, the Bernard property. I've visited that site. I haven't looked in the elevator shaft of the buildings that we're discussing here, so I have an intimate knowledge of this other property, whereas with this situation, I don't.
And I do know that we have a study session tonight at 6:30 that we're covering a few topics, but we'll be scheduling at least 2 other ones, a retreat and an additional study session on reorganization. So there is going to be plenty of opportunities once we gather more information if the council wants to further look into our equal opportunity or economic opportunity fund and how those dollars should be allocated.
I would think that before staff puts together information on that we need to have a clear view of what quantifies and qualifies an opportunity, and direct staff on that before we put a lot of effort into it. And I think during some of our work sessions, we need to iron that out.
I agree, and I have indicated to the director of the chamber that we need to take a fresh look at our job incentive policy. And I think she's in the process of putting together something before that can be put before us.
If we have a history of haphazard application of these funds, it's going to create more problems. Whereas if we have somewhat of a clear picture on how they are applied, people will know what's available to them.
For sure. But we also want it to be flexible enough so that we can react to opportunity. So it's a delicate balance.
Our intention today was to just put the idea out there and see if there's any opportunity. If you need more information, Jeff, we're most certainly happy to get that information together. Whether the city partners with us on this or not, we're looking for a solution, so we're getting that information for ourselves.
Are you offering all of us a ride in the elevator?
Absolutely, as long as you have an hour to get stuck in it as well.
Well, we greatly appreciate all the investment and everything you're doing with job creation and shoring up these, or reusing these buildings. So thank you for coming here today, and we'll be certain to get back to you. Good morning.
My name is Mary Beth Reimer. I am with JPY Gale Real Estate. I do commercial real estate. I'm here as a designated agent for USD 313 regarding 4712 East 4th, the OB school. I've got with me Shane Hecox, who's the Director of Finance for USD 313. Lost kind of part of my posse because they had commitments. So my ask is pretty short and direct. A very quick history. We have had OB School, has been on the market since about 2015, off and on the market. I recently took over the listing in 2020, in the middle of 2020, under the direction of Laura Deck, who's the president of the board. We've had it under contract now since November of 2020, and have worked wonderfully with the city, Peter Miller with the airport, because where the OB school sits, it is directly next to the airport. There is, I don't know if you're familiar with the parcel that the building sits on, and then there is some land of about 6.4 acres that for 50 plus years has been leased from the city to 313. They have leased that land from the city for 50 plus years. Anyway, so I have the building we have the building under contract. I'm also working with the buyer as well. And our question, we've been through this since November of 2020, and we have come down to asking, I'm here to ask for, there are consulting fees that go along with the airport redoing this once we are selling this land, or selling the building, as well as we're sectioning off about 1.33 acres that's going to go with the building that the buyer is buying. And so that is creating some consulting fees, et cetera, from the airport, from the city. And that bill with, I believe it's Lochner out of Overland Park or out of Johnson County, there's a bill of $14,350. It's always been that the buyer was going to have to pick up that. The seller has also agreed to pay part of that. And I'm here to ask, because of the involvement of the city, because of the benefit to the city, we're putting in an empty building that has been empty for 4, 5, 6 years, putting it back on the tax roll. I'm asking that the city, that we split this $14,350 in thirds between the city, my buyer, and my seller, who's 313, making it thirds at about $4,650 per person.
And is it my understanding that the city will also get lease money monthly from the buyer?
Yes. There is a portion that is in the RPZ zone, which is
runway protection zone.
Runway protection, thank you. The runway protection zone. That's on the west portion of the building of OB School. And there's, about an acre or so. And so the buyer is going to lease from the city / airport for $450 a year. I'm not exact on that, $435 a year, I think. And he will maintain that.
Okay.
So, and then he is buying, I don't know if you're familiar with OB School, but there are 3 buildings that were built, 3 rooms that were built on the northwest corner of OB School in 1996. That portion happens to sit on the city land, and so the buyer is going to buy, it's kind of on a north rectangle shape of 1.33 acres. He is buying that. That money will go to the city. But what I'm asking is to be able to split in thirds this consulting fee. We're also asking that we are hoping to close sometime this summer, maybe June 1st. We still got some FAA stuff that Peter has to run through. But we are also asking that this amount is not due until closing, as is in most real estate transactions, things like that. For the most part, they are.
Is this consulting just a formality? Is it going to happen? I'm sorry, Peter.
Sorry,
Peter. I know you've spent a lot of time on this.
Peter spent a ton of time. I mean, everybody has.
So, Peter Miller, airport manager. The consulting fees, because this is federally obligated property, and it was basically given to the city to be used as an airport back in the 1940s. There's all sorts of rules associated with that. In order for us to sell the portion of the property that we think makes sense, and that even at this point the FAA does, they said, yeah, that makes sense. We have to survey the boundary of the airport because it changes the footprint of the airport. There are environmental studies because it's on a landfill and a Superfund site. The airport layout plan, like I said, the boundary survey. I don't have the breakdown of the costs in front of me, but it's a considerable amount of time. It has to go to the Federal Register because it has to be publicly offered to say, okay, the government wants to sell this portion. It's no longer obligated under the federal obligations for grant assurances and all that kind of stuff. It's a process to sell a portion of an airport. And that process, you need to really hire an expert that is familiar with this process. And so our airport engineering firm, who we've had out there for about every 5 years, we go over projects with them. That was the estimated cost, about $14,350 to provide that service. So that's where that number came from. So. Yeah.
Mayor, the wet blanket and the reason they're here today is because in my review of it, the transaction doesn't really enrich the city's interest to any degree. It's certainly understandable why the district would want to get rid of the property. But I wouldn't want that to be confused with the fact that the city has spent dollars ever since 2015. Peter put a report out for us to review. And that since that time, the city in hard dollars has spent over $7,800 just in various fees, actions since that time that were of not specific benefit to the city, but nonetheless were attributable to the existence of the OB school. So I still am a contender that it's not a large sum of money. As a result, I hate to get hung up on these small single-digit transactions. It's not $1 million, but the reason that I suggested that the applicant take time at the podium is to discuss that for us so we can explore that and see how that might be deemed to be an equitable transaction on the city's part. And it may be that it's not enough to rise to the level of being that concerning. So that's why she's here today. Appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Would it not be of benefit to the city to see a building that's gone unoccupied come back onto the tax rolls and be used? And it's also my understanding that we would recoup that money through the lease. Okay, are we getting any lease money right now?
No.
No, it's $430 a year, so it would take about 11 or 12 years to recoup that approximate amount. But just having a property that's not abandoned and vacant is something to discuss.
And it does put it back on it's going to put it back on the tax rolls. I mean, obviously it's been part of the USD 313. I mean, and I feel like the buyer is not here, he had to go, but he's planning on using it for homeschooling and perhaps some meeting rooms and things like that. He's been a very patient buyer, and I've said this from time to time. I mean, in my time that I've had this listed, he is a very patient buyer, and that's worth something in his hand, because if this buyer were to go away, we would be back to square one. We'd still have the same fees. I would still come here for that buyer and the seller and say, hey, can we split this 3 ways? I feel like it gives everybody some skin in the game. I mean, it's a risk for the buyer, it's a risk for the seller, and it's a risk for the city. I just feel like that's my opinion.
I think it's a small amount, and it would signal our willingness to be a good partner with the school district and would see that building finally reused.
Is this the only building around the airport that we have this situation where?
Yes.
That makes me feel a little bit better about that.
Yes.
Okay.
And if the deal falls through, who's stuck with that bill?
Well, according to the, Mr. Brown put together a contract for purchase for the 1.33 acres, and that amount was cited that it would have to be paid up front. We're also asking if we can wait till the end of, somehow wait till we close in 6 months or whatever. But the way I understand it is that money is still, that bill still has to be paid, because even if the
I think the city is the short answer.
Even if the FAA says no, we're still kind of,
But would it still be, okay,
the
so.
bill is still going to be
But
there
if the
long.
FAA does not approve the transaction, council, there is no closing.
Right.
So
Yes,
that's why it can't
exactly.
be paid at closing. It needs to be paid up front. And it's not an option whether or not we hire Lochner for those consulting services. Has to happen.
Wouldn't
And
this,
it's the first thing we do.
but wouldn't this same study need to be conducted regardless of who's buying it? I mean, if we want that building to ever have potential for reuse and come back on the tax rolls, this study has to be completed. Am I understanding that right?
If the building's ever going to be sold and they want the property, there's lots of different parts to this. Kind of one of the biggest issues is the footprint of the building was built on the property line between the airport and the county. So quite literally, when you walk out the back door, you're on the airport. The FAA has an issue with that. And so we have to have something that's kind of equitable, in which case we've decided that let's sell them the portion that makes the most sense. And the FAA says, okay, you can probably sell that. Here's all the information that we need, figure out how to get us this information, and we can look at it. So that's where the consulting fees come into.
The project, or the property is being sold so cheap that the first question I had is, why don't we just absolve and get rid of all this nonsense? And we'll pay the nominal small price for the property and just have it part of the airport property. But the reality is, there's some environmental issues that go along with the property that could be far worse. So we even looked at that as an option. Asbestos and whatnot, interior type.
What are the council's thoughts on splitting the cost of the study with the school district and the buyer?
I would be for that, for an interesting reason maybe. I think we need to get along better as a city council with our
I
other
agree.
community members. I mean, you've already mentioned that, Jade, but I think that would be a olive branch to the Bueller School District. I think it would remove property for us, and there's a number of reasons I think that would be my thoughts.
I would agree, but I also understand why it needs to be paid up front for the survey, not at closing. I get that. Someone has to foot the bill up front, the full bill, sounds like. Just like hiring a surveyor to develop to figure out where the property lines are, they want to be paid before you go to closing. So I get that too. I don't know any clever way around that.
I'm in favor of splitting it regardless of whether it happens at closing or of splitting it, or if it happens prior.
Especially since this is the only property we have in this situation. Clean it up.
I'm in favor of it. Y'all look at you now.
I mean, the way I look at it, part of the problem's our issue too. I don't know. It's our airport. All of that needs to be done in order to this. I mean, it got like that somehow, right? Like, what happened? How did the school district own a piece of property that ended up having buildings built on part of our
I think they
airport?
owned the building and we owned the property.
What's the history behind how it got so messed up?
I'll tell you how it got messed up.
Right.
Unfortunately, I have the history of this building. OB School's been there forever. But the city limits and the city property literally go along the west wall and the north wall of the original OB School. We've always had the property around it. There was an extension built on that school for the Buehler School District. When they got their permit, they didn't get it from the city, they got it from the county. And so it wasn't reviewed by the city. And so their property ended up being on our property, which Hutch didn't really care, because back in the 50s, the rest of that property around, if you look at the screen and you see the rest of the rectangle, if you look where it says New Hope Baptist Church, directly to the north of that line, that's the OB School. And then you see the rectangle of area, the open area. We leased that to the Buehler School District clear back in the 50s. We didn't charge them anything. And I'm sure it's part of the same problem with the FAA that you can't get anything approved. So that's how I get messed up. And now that they're trying to sell the building, well, they want to sell all the building. They want to recoup the rest of the structure, because even the HVAC is on our property for the original building. So, yeah, trying to put the two properties back together, jump through all the hoops with the FAA, and get this done once and for all. I mean, we tried this several years ago. We were trying to sell the whole rectangle, and we were going to sell it dirt cheap to the Buehler School District. Well, then there was a telephone conference with the FAA. Peter, myself, and John Deerdoff, and the FAA told us how things really were, and we were not going to do that. So, okay. And so we're trying this again. We have some indication from the FAA this time that because there are other buildings, are other structures in the area that we're attempting to sell, that the resistance is not there. So we think we can get it done, and we're down to these two details, whether you split the Lochner fees or not, and whether or not you do that at closing.
So right now might actually be the best time that we do it,
I
because
think so.
in 10 years when we try it again, we might have a different FAA person in charge saying, nope.
So kind of the big, what they're most concerned about, I think we mentioned it earlier, was the runway protection zone.
Yeah.
That's a potentially pretty big deal. We got
where's
some
that
issues
at?
on the north end. So the runway protection zone is supposed to protect people on the ground for the approach into the runway. On that particular image, it's kind of, I mean, obviously the line's not on there.
Yeah.
It cuts through the bottom southwest corner of that property.
Okay.
We own the property adjacent to that runway protection zone. That's a big deal. One of our grant assurances, every time we take a federal dollar, we have to sign a paper that says we will do everything we can to protect runway protection zones and property around runway protection zones. And so the fact that we own the property adjacent to the RPZ for this runway, and then we asked them that we wanted to sell it, they're like, no, you can't sell it, you own it. You can rent it, or lease it. So that was kind of the hang up the first time. The second time, now we're just cutting out the section we want to sell that makes the most sense, basically underneath the buildings that have been built there. So we still retain control and own most of the RPZ up against that area. Again, this has just been telephone conversations over the last 6 months with the FAA and I. Until they get the official survey and see exactly what it's going to look like and where it's going to be, it was most likely, well, that makes sense, but send us the information and we'll let you know.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the larger budget impact are all those homes that we should be acquiring in the RPZ that we're not. So, I mean, and those are $200,000 or $300,000 a pop. So, $4,500 it seems like not a big deal.
agreed.
Well, it sounds like there's consensus on council. So, if Mary Beth or the school district doesn't mind working directly with our attorney on, getting what you need.
I'm assuming we'll just continue our conversations.
And Godspeed.
But seriously, the city's been great. We got kind of caught up in COVID, and Peter's been wonderful. So do appreciate all of it. It's just time to wrap it out.
Well, council, to be clear, we're going to split the Lochner fee in thirds, but it's paid up front.
If that's what's needed.
That's what I'm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we
Can
can
that
do
be
that.
done?
Fantastic. Thank you so
And
much.
council,
Paul.
that contract comes back before you for approval.
Okay, okay. Well,
Could I
Godspeed.
just
Yeah.
introduce myself? I'm Shane Hecox, Director of Finance. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that's involved in this complex project. I didn't realize that 2.5 years ago when I took over as Director of Finance that this was probably the most strange property maybe in the area. So I really appreciate everybody's help. And I know Cindy Couchman was here. She had to run off to attend a funeral. So she wanted to apologize that she couldn't speak to you guys. And just wanted to say thank you for all the behind-the-scenes work. I get updated via email periodically, but I know there's a lot of behind-the-scenes that goes on in these kind of things. So thank you.
Thank you, Shane, and good luck with the FAA. Mary Beth.
That's Peter.
Yeah.
I trust Peter a lot. Thank you. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the council on an item that is not on the agenda? Hearing none, I'm going to call a 5-minute recess before the next agenda item, and we will reconvene at 10:40. Thank you.
5, consent agenda.
Is there a motion or a discussion on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Garza.
Yes.
Bass.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Conrad Carvalho.
Yes. Next item, please.
Item 6, public hearing to consider right-of-way vacation of 1326 East Avenue A.
Is there a motion to open the hearing?
I move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Garza.
Yes.
Bass.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Conrad Carvalho.
Yes.
Hey, good morning. The city received a petition from Interfaith Housing to vacate a portion of the existing right-of-way, which is located at 1326 East Avenue A on lots 24 through 31, Block 1 of the Eccles Second Edition subdivision. All city departments and utility companies, with the exception of Evergy, responded and approved the proposed right-of-way vacation. Because of the responses from affected parties, the city council engineering is requesting that the city council approve the proposed vacation of the right-of-way located lots 24 through 31, block 1 of the Eccles Second Edition. And I believe the petitioner is here and would like to address the council.
There we go.
Jessica, what's the process when one of the utilities doesn't respond? Do we need their comments for approval? I mean,
we don't need their approval to move forward. I believe the statute states that the petition not be granted if someone files a written objection with the city clerk, and that hasn't been received.
Okay.
I know our city clerk notifies everyone, and when she doesn't receive a response within the requested time frame, she re-notifies them. And so they haven't responded after both of those notifications. We did look at the area. Evergy doesn't appear to have any overhead power lines. Well, they don't have any overhead power lines in this particular area. It actually looks like the power lines for this are in the back, so I can't speak for them, but.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good morning. Clint Nelson, Interfaith Housing and Community Services. Good morning, council and fellow community members. Really kind of outside of our request, but I wanted to at least take an opportunity to let you know the purpose for our request for this vacation of street right away. About a year ago, we were blessed with a commitment from the Hutchinson Community Foundation for approximately $13,000 for new signage and some other building improvements. And when we went to place the sign, that's when it was brought to my attention that we couldn't put it by the curb. We had to put it by the building. So we've always considered this kind of our front yard space, and I think it would benefit us to have that new signage with our new brand and logo out by the street, and visible both from the east and the west. One other thing I wanted to offer up, if you don't frequent this part of town, right there on Avenue A in Lorraine, I would encourage you to make your way under the overpass, heading east at some point. Over the last 10 years, Interfaith has strategically and through a couple different means acquired all of the residential property just to the south of our main office building. And we are currently completing our final two renovation projects. We feel like it is a demonstration of the type of residential revitalization work that we can perform, concentrated to a one block area. It really has a great look to it. And I would encourage you to make your way out there and see the work we've been doing right there on our main block. So thank you for considering our request today.
Jessica, I did have one more question. When a right-of-way is vacated and say there's a new utility that wants to get into the conduit or in that right-of-way, did they have to enter into agreement with the private party instead of the city, even though the city owns both sides? Does that make sense?
Maybe.
Like, for instance, like if a broadband provider, I'm not saying we're
Yeah,
gonna get
if you're saying if there was an existing conduit in the area we were vacating, we would maintain an easement there, but there isn't.
Okay.
So we're not maintaining that. There still is approximately 10 feet from the front of where the right-of-way of that red line to the south. There's approximately 10 feet between that line and the curb, so if we did put a new utility in, then we have a little bit of space there. I think there's a water line that's nearby there now, so there is space for something.
Okay, thank you. Are there comments, questions, or a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments from the audience? Okay. Hearing none, please call the roll.
Garza.
Yes.
Bass.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Thomas Nickermiller.
Yes, next item, please.
I need a motion to approve the vacation.
Is there a motion on the vacation?
Motion to approve the vacation of the existing right-of-way as described in the notice to vacate and indicated on the provided site map based upon the responses received from potential affected utilities and departments, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second that.
Okay, motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Garza.
Yes.
Fast.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Thomas Nickermiller.
Yes, next item, please.
Item 7A, consider approval of the Cross Point Edition final plat.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Ryan Vietlook, Director of Planning and Development. Before you this morning is a request for approval of the final plat. This is SDF 21-12. This is a final plat for Cross Point Edition. The Planning Commission heard this at their meeting last Tuesday and recommended approval to this body with a vote of 5-0. This would be a request for a final plat for 2 tracts located at 1410 East 30th Avenue, as well as an unaddressed parcel on North Lorraine Street. And this would be platted as Lot 1, Block 1 of the Cross Point Edition. And the purpose of it is for future development for a parking lot to the north. If you're familiar with Cross Point property, there's a grassy lot that the church owns that's just south of the Dollar General. The church uses that as overflow parking, and not really even overflow parking. That's just their membership is growing so much that that a lot of their parishioners will park actually on that property. So the purpose of that, what they'd like to do is actually construct a new parking lot there. So as part of that, they do need to plat the property. The applicant and surveyor is Dan Garber. The property owner is Westbrook Baptist Church of Hutchinson. Here is a showing of the property that in question. So the 1410 is the actual Cross Point campus itself. You'll see that the property to the north is a U-shaped property. In the middle is the Dollar General there at 3030 North Lorraine. So as I mentioned, the applicant is proposing to put a parking lot in on that North Lorraine parcel, combining the 2 parcels into one. So here is a screenshot of the plat. I'll actually zoom in so you can see a little bit better. So as you can see, this would be one large, I don't really know what type of shape you would call that, but
Dinosaur.
yeah, it's a Frankenstein of a shape. But yes, that would be one large lot that would be there. And as I mentioned, the area that you see that's under the Block 1, Lot 1 is where parking would be located. Property in question is split zoned, C3 to the north, C4 along East 30th. Parking lot is a allowed use in either one of those zones. They will not have any zoning issues with this property. The church itself is a public institutional under the comprehensive plan. The parking lot is shown as commercial. Once again, the use is allowed on either one of those future land use designations. So there's no real issue there. So here's just a real quick shot of the church. As you can see, this is looking north from 30th Avenue. Here's a picture of the property in question from the edge of that of the existing Cross Point property. See, there's some residential to the west of that site. Any parking lot will still have to go through a parking lot permitting process. They'll be required to do screening and things like that. We've notified the church of that. Here's just more of the property in question, as you can see, and then there's the Dollar General there. So with that, I'd be happy to answer questions you may have before I give my recommendation.
Ryan, are notifications to adjacent property owners made during the platting process or the permitting process?
There would not be any notifications that would be required for either one. A couple of years ago, during the major rezoning changes, that was actually taken out of a requirement for a public hearing for plats. That's now done through Planning Commission and then City Council. And then there would not be any requirements for the parking lot, as that's an allowed by right use. But we do still have some measures in there to mitigate any of those concerns about lighting, sound, vision, and the main thing is the screening fence that would be required adjacent to the residential.
That was my concern, that house.
Yep, absolutely. And if you're familiar with that area, there's several other lots that are proposed for future residential, and yes, that will be something very similar to Salt City Brewing. That was a little different. That was a rezoning. But one of the big things there was that they did have to screen because they're adjacent to residential. So that would be required in this case as well.
Okay. I know we ran into that with the Dillon's marketplace too.
Yes, very similar. Yep.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Further questions or a motion on this item?
I'll make the motion to accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission to approve the final plat for the Cross Point addition.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Garza?
Yes.
Bass?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Sticker-Holland?
Yes. Next item, please. Thank you, Ryan.
Item 7B, consider approval of 2022 SCIU Local 513 Memorandum of Understanding.
Thought it would never
Secretary
happen.
Good morning, Council. Tom Sanders, Human Resources Director. Following our council meeting that happened on the 18th, the city went back to the union and proposed a couple new proposals on basically the two issues that were kind of came out of that meeting, which was Article 16, the work hours issue on flex time, and then Article 20, the after hours requirements, which really got into callback pay. Our proposal on the flex time restricted management's ability to unilaterally impose flex time when the overtime was caused by emergency work. The city also revised its after-hours callback proposal to have that start at 5 p.m. rather than 2 hours after the end of the shift. And then also we proposed that the holiday callback pay actually be applied on the actual day of the holiday versus when the city recognized it. The flex time issue continued to be kind of a contentious issue with the union, so on February 1st, we subsequently withdrew the whole proposal, but they accepted the proposal on the callback pay. They had their union vote on February 8th, and it reportedly passed by a wide margin, which I think makes us all happy. So. The MOU in your packet basically incorporates a lot of the same language. It's in our other bargaining unit agreements on the areas of management rights, grievance procedure, probationary period, overtime pay, and the renegotiation due to loss of revenue. The most noteworthy modified language in the contract was in Article 20. There's a new Appendix E, which lists the job classifications that are subject to 30-minute response time. Those are all public works jobs, and they were kind of driven by the critical need to be able to get back in time to address whatever issues are coming up. There were 6 employees that are kind of on the border of living outside that 30-minute response time, and we agreed with the union to grandfather those folks. And then we also, in that article, clarified callback pay administration, which I'd mentioned before, starting at 5, and then a 1-hour guarantee for any kind of callbacks that happen between the end of their shift and 5 o'clock, and then the holiday being actually the day when the holiday callback pay would be paid out. We also tweaked the holidays. We codified, put in our past practice since 2008, We basically took that language, that agreement with the union, and put it into the contract. We also, in Article 26, eliminated the quote-unquote special holiday that's been in the contract for years. That's been kind of a bone of contention to a lot of people that are in the union. They'd prefer just to have another floating holiday. So we proposed that this year, and they accepted that, and so we made that change. And then also on the sick leave wellness day, the SEIU is now on the same rolling 12-month system as every other bargaining unit. And then on the uniform and allowances, about 6 months or so ago, we approached the union about having that be paid to employ new hires rather than waiting until after their 6-month probationary period. So that language kind of codified what we've been doing there as well. And we also increased the allowance from $120 to $175, and put in some repayment language so that if an employee doesn't make it through probation, or if they get that payment and then the next day quit, that we'd have some ability to recover that money. And then on the economic package, Appendix B, for all the SEIU covered jobs, the wage scale movement's going to be 2% for 2022. And then Appendix C has been modified from last year to reflect a merit matrix pool of 4%. So, and with that quick overview, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Questions? Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Took us a while to get there, but we got there. So.
Is there a motion on this item?
Motion to approve the proposed memorandum of understanding with the SEIU Local 513 bargaining unit for 2022 and authorize the mayor to sign the associated documents.
I second that.
Okay, motion and second on the floor. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Garza?
Yes.
Bass?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Iris-Carvalho?
Yes, next item, please.
Item 8A, report of city officials.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with you, Sarah.
I don't have anything this morning.
Okay. What about you, John?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Craig?
I have a couple things. A friend of mine this morning passed away that you probably all know, and it's Kelly McMurphy. So he's been a part of the city on boards and has partnered with the city on projects in parks and buildings, and I just wanted to make you all aware of that, and my thoughts and prayers go out to Haley and Mason and Patty and Danielle. So anyway, I did have one other question for you, Paul. How are we coming on the question I had with the ADA accessibility to the river?
Park staff is currently addressing that.
Okay. All right, thanks.
And if there's further questions on that, council, just send those to me.
Okay, I'll forward them on.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate Mayor's step in the right direction of getting along with the people that are people that we partner with. I think we need to work hard to do more of that, to try to get along. I think it benefits our whole county, our city, and I think it's time we step up that game a little bit. Just my opinion.
Yeah, well said. Steve?
Me? No, I'm glad we got the union situation all figured out, and that's all I have. Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, I just want to tag on my condolences to Kelly McMurphy's family. Landmark has been a great community partner, and it's a real blow. He was a great public servant and very good volunteer, so my thoughts go out to his family. I wanted to remind everybody that we do have a study session this evening at 6:30 p.m. That will take place in this room, and we'll be covering a couple topics and look to add a few more study sessions to the calendar in the coming weeks, so we'll be sure to get that information out to the public in case they want to attend. A reminder that those meetings are open, typically not open for public comment, but certainly open for public attendance. And with that, I will hand it over to the city manager.
Thanks, Mayor. Greg, I promise that was on my list of things to discuss. I had it right here written down. The river access.
Okay.
I know we all got pinged with that a few times from Mr. Brown. And what I've been able to confirm through legal and through analysis of other previous projects where I've been beat up in the state of Kansas and through other federal ADA requirements is that there is a requirement for ADA compliant parking, even though the ride, the attraction, the feature can no way possibly be accommodated. It's kind of like if you wanted to do skydiving, the parking lot that you park your car in is going to have to be able to accommodate ADA.
Mm-hmm.
But the aircraft that you jump out the door of does not have to be. You know. So in that respect, where we appear to be fully compliant, and I know we've had a three-way conversation here amongst staff that whatever improvements are made in the parking will be fully ADA compliant.
Do we have a timeline on that, Jeff? Or just as we make them? I mean, does anybody know?
I don't know what the timeline is on that. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Justin's here.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin.
See, Justin, you knew you didn't just sit back there for 2 hours for nothing.
Good morning, Justin Combs, Director of Parks and Facilities. The sign is up already. We're going to evaluate whether that's going to get compacted enough to meet the requirements. If it doesn't, we'll have to go in and pour a small concrete pad. Right now, it's still pretty loose because it's new fill. If it doesn't meet those compaction requirements, we'll get a concrete pad going. But the sign is up for now. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
By the way, that looks great out there. I drove out there and looked around
Yeah,
and
thank
walked
you.
down to the river.
Yeah. The other day I was out and I noticed there was a truck parked there with a rack and their footprint and drag mark of a canoe. And then coming into town, I saw 2 canoes coming back. So I assumed they used the site and got out at Carrot Park and were coming back. So it's good to see it getting used.
Thank you very much. What else you
Mayor,
got,
that's all
Jeff?
I have. I'll rest for questions. Thank you.
Okay, I do believe that we need to recess into executive session. Is this 75-43-19B? I don't know.
I'll give you the motion.
Okay.
How long do you think we'll take?
20 minutes.
20 minutes. So 11:25. And I'll read the motion to you. If you would just, one of the members of the council would say so moved. That'll take care of it. I move the city council to recess into executive session pursuant to the preliminary discussion relating to acquisition of real property exception, KSA 75-43-19B6, in order to discuss a possible purchase of real estate in Hutchinson. The open meeting to resume in the city council chambers at 11:25 a.m.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Garza?
Yes.
Bass?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Connors, Nicole?
Yes. Thank you.
So why do we have 5 more?